Let's talk about electric cars under $35,000 after incentives that are available right now in the United States. And is Tesla Model 3 the best choice for everybody? The reason I'm asking you guys this, and really myself even sometimes, because I had a conversation last night with a friend of mine who was literally on his way to test drive a Model 3, and he was asking me, Alex, what do you think? And, I realized it really doesn't matter what I think. It's what works for him. And I realized after he told me a few things that Model 3 might have not been his best choice. And I'm still kind of arguing back and forth in my head, but I figured, well, if I'm going to argue back and forth, no better first person to do it with than Eli Burotn of My Tesla Adventure, especially today's Wednesday. So he's here anyway for his Supercharged segment. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Taking over the world, electrifying the world, Welcome to E4Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, just like I said, it is Wednesday, so Eli is going to be here in just 1 second. And of course, if he was asking me what kind of car he would need to buy under $35,000, I'll be like, Eli, you're a huge Tesla and Elon Musk fan. You must buy a Tesla, right? But most people are really not fans of Elon Musk or Tesla. They just want to get from point A to point B. They're kind of bought into an idea of driving an electric car. They know that's the future. And advice for them really has to be less from the point of view of like what's cool, but what works for them and their kids and their budget and so forth. So we're gonna go through a few of the available. So here's the rules: under $35,000 after the incentives, and has to be an electric car that's available right now in the United States. There's only one more model that's available in Europe that's not available here, so we'll do an honorable mention. And okay, so before I bring Eli in, of course, just want to quickly mention that this video and this channel is sponsored by Burton. Check out the all-electric M-Byte coming to the United States and Europe at the end of next year. Over 50,000 reservations made already. You should be on that list as well. It's free, first of all. Takes about 60 seconds, so go ahead to Burton.com. There's a link in the description of this video as well. Starting at only $45,000 before the incentive, so we might be talking about that car pretty soon as well. Okay, all right, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Eli. Eli, how the heck are you doing, my friend?
Alex, how are you, my friend? It's great to be back on your show. I love doing this segment with you weekly. And what I find so exciting about this is there's actually enough, I would say, true EVs on the market now that we can actually have a discussion about which one you should buy if you're in the market for a brand new vehicle and you're looking at the under $35,000 price point with incentives.
Now, I know we usually do plugs at the end of the show, but I must mention our amazing, awesome, funny TikTok video we just made. So we're just going to do a plug right away. So because the video, you already posted it on your Instagram, which is at My Tesla Adventure, which people should subscribe to anyway, because if you're a Tesla fan and that you just like, I subscribe and I have so much fun watching your stories. And one of them is going to be if you guys want to, like, you guys like watching us argue, that's one thing, but we were actually dancing in that video. I think that's a whole new level of friendship, I think.
We're dancing to Frozen. So guys, if you're not following our Instagrams already, mine at My Tesla Adventure or Alex at E4Electric, go check it out. The video is hilarious.
It is hilarious. And it was fun to do. Okay. All right. Okay. Back to the matter of fact. All right. So obviously, listen, Model 3 is, the most sold electric car ever. I mean, the production is kind of still ramping up. I guess I can still say that. The advances that they now have in terms of, charging and self-driving and then the potential is huge, right? But me and you can be excited about it and geek out about it. But let's talk about like some other alternatives that, like, my friend, his name is Victor, should get. Like, for example, let me just give you a setup, right? And first of all, do you agree with me that Model 3 is really kind of the leader there? But there are some now alternatives that are catching up and might cater to some of the people's needs that make them want to look the other way.
When you consider the total package of what Tesla is offering with the Model 3, supercharging up to 250 kilowatts, 1,000 miles per hour, the price point of the Model 3, the safety of the Model 3, the fact that it's autopilot upgradable with software, I think total value, the Model 3 is by far the leader.
Yeah. But I'm going to challenge that in a second, and not so much me. I actually agree with you, but my friend might in terms of what he needs. So okay,
you can be the leader and not be the best car for everyone. That's something that's important to know.
Yeah. And so, okay, now he basically says, listen, this is going to be my car. He has a family, he has a wife and two kids. He basically, this is going to be his car to drive to the office. He does drive, I think, 50 miles to his office and back. Obviously, that can change. People get change jobs, and it could be further or closer. And he basically does not need this car to drive his family around, really. But sometimes he will. But they do have a minivan, I think, when they want to go long distance, and they would be using a gas car. Again, he basically does not want to be inconvenienced by the new technology. He only wants to get benefits, which is fair enough. Um, and his budget, I think, is under 40,000 or under 45,000. But again, I've said the $35,000 and under because it's after the incentives. So okay. Uh, what would you like, what are the do you think Model 3 is the right for him, or do you think there are some things? And by the way, he's pretty active, like he goes, plays hockey, they go camping and stuff like that. So what are the advantages and disadvantages you see of the Model 3, and out of all the other cars, and we'll go over them in a second, what do you think there are alternatives that he might also want to consider?
So, I mean, if we're talking somebody who doesn't, who wants to be inconvenienced as least as possible or not at all by some of the limitations that come with having to charge a battery with an electric vehicle, right now, Model 3 still is going to make the most sense. Um, Aside from what it does handling traffic with autopilot, but just talking about range, total range, and minimum amount of charging time, if that becomes necessary, with the most amount of options for high speed charging, Model 3 is still the leader. Now, if he's just going to be using this back and forth to the office, and that's is a 50-mile round trip or a 100-mile round trip, there are other options that he can choose from that he could probably save a little bit more money, especially since some of these other automakers have the full tax credit, and for Tesla it's already cut in half. If he doesn't care about having things like autopilot or doesn't expect to ever need to charge out away from his house.
Well, that's interesting that you bring the autopilot, right? I mean, if you really think about it, and I know you love the autopilot. I've driven with you before. You love the autopilot. I totally get it. And but most people, they don't care. Like, they don't care if their car is going to meet them in front of the restaurant or whatever. That you still have to be pressing the button, and it's almost as inconvenient as walking to the car. I mean, there's something to walking. Like, I wouldn't do it just because I actually want to walk after having a freaking meal at the restaurant, right? So like, as I think a lot of other people don't care if your car is going to drive itself, because you still have to pay attention to the road. You're not gaining that much of any particular time or whatever. So I think that's the thing that the people think about of autopilot. Like, us nerds, we geek out over it, and it's pretty cool. And
And
I
I
know.
think part of that too is because there's nothing else like it on the road that people have experienced. So they really don't know what they're missing. It's one of the things that when I take people on rides in my car for any length in the freeway, once they get how autopilot works, they never want a car without it. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people buying don't really understand how much that technology can change their life, especially if they deal with lots of traffic going through, busy areas and cities like in the Bay Area or in LA. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It won't be a big part of the buying decision for people who've never experienced it. And it's
Well,
something too that even on a test drive, when maybe they take you on the freeway for a mile or two, it doesn't really fully give you perspective of what it'll mean. You've got to do that half an hour drive. You've got to do that mile, that hour commute to work, and see what you feel like when you get there with it to know how badly you need it. So I agree that I don't think it will be as big of a decision making factor for folks who've never experienced one of these cars before.
on another hand, because I think maybe I didn't make myself that clear, like, I'm somebody who's experienced it many times, and my next car, whether it's Tesla or not, is not going to have an autopilot. I have zero interest in autopilot. I think, like, to me, again, if unless I really can do something else, like turn around and talk to somebody in a car or be on my phone or whatever without getting a ticket for it, like, I don't see any use for it. And even though I have autopilot 1.0, like, for example, the only time when I actually make the car park is when I'm showing off my car saying, look how cool the technology is. But if I actually by myself and I need to park, I can do it so much freaking faster than the car itself that I don't even bother. So I'm actually one of those people who go like, cool technology, not worth it to me, because I don't gain anything out of it except for having something cool, you know? So I think a lot of people might be in the same boat, but I also see what you're saying, that if they haven't experienced something, they might not see value that it might be there for them. Okay, So I think we kind of got on a tangent a little bit because, to be honest with you, the most important thing for people is the price, right?
Yep.
And the price of the Model 3 is not only gone up in the last couple of months, but also it's going up in another way because the incentives, the tax credit here in the United States already been cut in half, is just about to be cut in half again, where the competition, they have the full $7,500 credit. Nissan and Chevy are getting close to the phase out. I think Chevy's one actually already started. So they have an advantage, and of course they give you discounts and lease deals and stuff like that, unlike Tesla. What do you think about that? Like, do you think Tesla should be more competitive with their pricing, or do you think, especially because of the phase out of the tax credit, or do you think they're good where they're at?
I don't think they need to be more competitive on the base Model 3. I think that what this means for folks who want to buy at the lower end, I mean, you can get a Chevy Bolt for 36,000 pre-incentive. That's under 30,000 post-incentive. You can get a Leaf for 29,000 before incentives, which you're talking low 20s before incentives. If that's the price range in which you can afford to buy a vehicle, then you should absolutely buy one of those cars. You should definitely be going electric. Now, I don't think Tesla needs to continue to drop their prices because Tesla is still selling a luxury car. Even the base model, the Model 3, has much more. Our base model plus, which is the only one on the menu currently, although you can order the base model off menu, it is a much more luxury car than what the Leaf and Bolt and all these other manufacturers are selling. So I think the price absolutely needs to be differentiated to help capture some of the costs and capture some of that value.
Okay. Now, by the way, let me just walk our viewers through what cars are actually available right now in the United States to buy. So let me do that really quick, right? So, I mean, obviously, we just mentioned Model 3. Now, I hate to mention this, but BMW i3 that does have a 125-mile range, and it has a gas extender, right? So it's kind of in play. Then, of course, we got Hyundai EV, which is also on sale now. I believe starts about 38,000. And the range is also about 250, 260 miles. Sister brand, the Kia, has Niro EV, which is a bigger car, a little bit less of a range, but it's still about 250. Also starts about 37,000. Then we got Nissan Leaf, as you mentioned, starting at 29 or under 30 before incentives. That's the base price, but if you want a 225-mile range, you pay bit more. Of course, Chevy Bolt, that is also has a 238-mile range, about 38,000 starting price. I think the honorable mention here, you just saw a slide, I think, is for Renault Zoe, that's only being sold in Europe, about 160-mile range or so, also starts around 30,000, 32,000 American dollars. The price is, depending on the conversion and sales and stuff like that. So that's where we sit with the competition right now.
And I want to jump in on one of those there. The BMW i3 really doesn't belong in this grouping for me because they're the only one that still has a gas engine. So when you're thinking about buying a true electric car, the BMW i3 is not a pure electric car. It's got a gas engine still in there, and it only gets 126 miles on battery only, which is a very short range. It's something you could use if you live in a city, but I mean, we're talking 126 miles battery only. We know the way it works with batteries, Alex. That probably means 100 usable max. I mean, You're not getting very far.
Yeah.
And when it's got the gas engine on top of it, so yeah, I mean, they do have more range off the battery than gas, but they've still got an engine. So I'm not going to include them in my head for part of this discussion.
In fairness, the extender is a version you can buy. You can buy an all-electric pure BMW i3. You will only have that 125-mile range, which in reality is 100. I did include it because some people, I mean, it's literally like one of the best selling electric cars ever, right? They just reached 150,000 mile milestone. So people are seeing value in them. And I'm trying to make it as little as possible about me. And I also think it's extremely fugly, right? On top of that, right? So yes, I would not recommend it, but with some sales, like some of the sales they have, it really brings the price down to 20,000. So I'm thinking okay, well, if it's 20,000, 125-mile range, but it's BMW, for some people, it does make sense, and for my friend, it might as well. I do have to say that so there are a couple of other things that I wanted to mention where I struggle recommending Model 3. Model 3 has a trunk, right? And it's relatively small. But for people like my friend Victor, he's pretty active, and a lot of people also just need space. So they want the crossover SUV, they want a hatchback. And every single car I just mentioned, literally every single car that's an alternative to Model 3, they all have the hatchback opening where you can jam so much stuff. Obviously, Model Y is a couple of years away at the very least. So I
But
think
right
that
now, if you're looking for something in that solution, you may be the best fit for you may be the Hyundai Kona EV. I mean, we're talking if you want to have some storage space and a hatchback, like if Model Y was out, I think we'd be having a completely different discussion, but it's not. And exactly what you said, we're a year and a half away plus for that car. So if you're
yeah,
looking to buy an EV today in that price range, the Kona EV may be exactly the right fit for you.
it's
If
funny
I
that
had to
you,
buy, if I needed to buy an SUV in that price range today, that's what I'd be looking at. Assuming I'm not going to be buying a Model X because that's 2-3 times the
right.
cost. Yeah, I mean that seems like a very viable option.
It's funny that you mentioned that he did try a Kona EV, and it is not as it's not as big as the Kia Niro EV. So Kia Niro EV is a bit bigger. So he basically said no, that's too small, and he actually wanted to look at the Kia Niro EV. And because it's bigger, but it has pretty much the same technology, it does go a little like 20 miles less than Kona. But if you want the bigger space, then actually Niro EV is a little bigger. And I test drove it in Santa Cruz a couple of months ago, and I gotta tell you, like, it's not a luxury car, but for a car, it's pretty freaking good. Like, I was impressed, and I didn't expect to be impressed.
That's good to know. I haven't had a chance to drive one yet.
They literally just went on sale, like literally, like I think a week or two ago, and he said that the dealer he was talking to basically said, I'm gonna put you on the list, and whenever I have like 5 available, I'm just gonna email you guys, and whoever makes it over here first is gonna get it. That's how they're doing it right now. That's how popular it is.
That's
But
fantastic.
yeah, no, it is. It's pretty cool. But okay, so the hatchback could sway people one way or another. Even they might like the technology and the look of the Model 3. My last one is, and as you know, I'm a bit of a bias here because I had such a tough time with Tesla, but service, right? Service is something that even Elon said that they're struggling with, and with the legacy manufacturers, which all of these cars are from, obviously have that figured out already. And it's I feel like this is something that can really keep people away from Tesla, and they really should try to get their service up to at least an average standards where people don't hate them for it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is the year that by the end of 2019, people's experience with Tesla service needs at the very least be okay. Not
Well,
bad anymore. At the very least, be okay. And if they don't fix that this year, I think long term, it's going to compromise the brand's ability to continue to bring in customers who are not willing to tolerate some of the downsides of being part of an innovative and early on company. And they have been. They've been a startup company for a long time, but now it's scaling Model 3 and now going into Model Y. They've got to transition to be more than a startup and be sustainable in how they provide service. And we saw something cool that they just added, and I think you did a video about it yesterday, the day before, that now when they detect an issue with the car will automatically order the necessary replacement part headed to your local service center. So, like, I mean, that's they're taking steps and intelligent steps to start automating some of these processes and parts orderings to hopefully help ease some of the burden. So I've got to imagine that's just one of several different angles from which Tesla is attacking this problem.
yeah, and I gotta tell you, like, as I'm getting a little cold feet on the e-tron and looking at IQC, but also thinking about maybe sucking it up and going with Tesla again. My hopes in my head, if I was to go with Tesla, is that okay, I'm already almost immune to their horrible, crappy service, but I can only imagine it getting better, right? Because it has been Elon's priority for a while. So I hope you're right, and by the end of the year, they will actually improve to at least average, which is kind of sad that we're even saying that. Can I bring up one more thing about price? But I think that's it's kind of important. The fact that a lot of people lease. I'm a huge supporter of leasing. I believe that's the way to go, especially if you want to drive a car for a few years and then change it once the warranty expires. Tesla had to just update the lease price, and let me show you what they're at right now. This is after they improved it by a total of $2,000 altogether for the entire 36-month worth of payments to this. As you can see, this is for the Standard Plus, $4,500 down. The 3 years, 10,000 mile allowance per year. Sorry, I said per month. It's really per year. And monthly payment is $400. Now, let me show you what Kia is offering right now for pretty much similar pricing. $4,000 down, a little bit less, and $319 a month for the payment. And don't forget, you cannot buy the Model 3 out of your lease at the end, which you can do with everybody else. You just mentioned that you think their pricing is okay. Do you think their lease pricing can still improve, or do you think they're still okay, even they're kind of losing in terms of math a little bit there?
I think the monthly difference between the two is not going to hurt them too much, especially for what I think how much more of a car you get with Model 3. Now, the thing that I will see will push some people away from leasing and maybe push some people who were going to lease Model 3 away from Model 3 entirely will be not having the option to buy. Now, a lot of people don't buy at the end of the lease, but people like to have the option for it going in. It also gives them a bit of insurance if they way drive over on miles, if they do any accidental or unnecessary wear and tear or damage on the car. So there's a bit of an insurance for the leasee that they have the ability to buy at the end. Now I understand why Tesla is not doing that. Why? Because they're setting this up to be the future fleet for their autonomous robo-taxi network. But I think it will push some people out of the brand entirely just because they don't want it. They want to lease, but they don't want to deal with that limitation. I think long term, I think that's going to be an acceptable cost for Tesla by having a guaranteed fleet coming back to them for their autonomous network just when they need it. But yeah, it's definitely going to push some people to some other EVs.
Yeah, the reason I like to have that option is because if the car is worth more money than my residual value, I can buy it out and make up the difference and get one, two, three. Sometimes I even gotten $5,000 because the market value stayed up, rather than essentially giving it away to the bank, which I don't think anybody wants to do. Okay, but one last thing that I think is Tesla still has a pretty good advantage, and again, we're like kind of brushing the autopilot aside, which is like completely 100% king, is charging, right? Even with Electrify America here in the United States growing, I think they're up to 161 locations. Probably 500 at the end of the year. They're growing pretty fast. They're still more expensive than even the paid Tesla superchargers, and obviously superchargers have blanketed pretty much all of the civilized world. Do you think that makes big difference for, again, like a friend like mine who basically just wants to drive to work every day, charge at home, and for the long trips, just like I do, have a gas car or hybrid car, plug-in hybrid car, where he doesn't want to deal with any of this fast charging. And I say fast charging because 45 minutes is not as fast as refueling a gas tank. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is still a big advantage for Tesla over other electric cars?
It's a huge advantage. So Tesla's got almost 13,000 superchargers, 1,400 supercharging locations globally, and Electrify America has what? Not even 200 locations. Pricing is a
Electrify America. So let's just correct. Let's just compare U.S. because Electrify America is only in America, so they can only compete in America. So I don't know. I think that Tesla has about 2,000, 2,100 locations right now in the U.S.
It's a lot. I'm looking at the supercharging map right now versus, and I say I don't have the exact count for US only. I should have looked that up ahead of time, but I'll accept your estimate.
Yeah.
But where I'm headed with this though is it's going to be a big deal because there was a lot of people when Tesla was early on in this and they didn't have the supercharging network where it was today, that when people were like, well, I can't get to and from my destination where I want to go without supercharging, I'm not going to buy the car. And you're right. For people like you who have multiple cars or are willing to rent a car to not have to deal with the convenience, it's fine. But people want to buy this and this is going to be their family car. And when they hear that they want to go from here to Los Angeles, and it's going to take them some crazy amount of time, that's going to push them away from buying the car. Because again, it used to push people away from buying Teslas until the supercharging network became so ubiquitous. So there's definitely going to be a limit on growth of sales that these other EVs can have until there is a very large high-speed charging network that is so trusted and so known that people are like, oh yeah, it's fine. There'll be a charger wherever I go.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, there are way more Teslas per. By the end of the year, when Electrify America does build out the 500 that they have, Tesla will probably stick around about. I would say 2,500 would be a fair number. The number of fast charging locations per cars that can charge there would probably still be an advantage for Electrify America because we're just ramping up the whole CCS compatible electric non-Tesla cars, but the Model 3 is killing it and selling it in ridiculous numbers, so that ratio will probably subside. But I will agree with you that perception is a reality, and when people don't see the map like completely and covered, blanketed by red dots of superchargers or charging locations, or when they at least see them themselves somewhere, because like, oh, there's a Tesla supercharger, oh, okay, so I've seen one now. You're right, that is still going to be a disadvantage for people shopping for non-Teslas, so
And
I
there's
would
something that
definitely
I
agree
think
with
these
you.
other EVs need to build into their maps navigation, and I haven't seen them, so maybe you can speak better to this. But it's a real big deal when you can get into a Tesla and someone says, "Well, how do I going to get to where somewhere I'm going to go?" So I was showing somebody my vehicle recently who's going to be taking my Model S, and he says, "One of the places I drive is somewhere in Oregon." So I'm like, "Great, let me drop the city in there." I press navigate, and then 15 seconds they watch the navigation system navigate me where to go, show me where to stop, and how long to charge. That is a huge deal in easing the mind of people who haven't bought these before, that they can literally see the route from where they are to the places they like to go and see how the car is integrated with the charging problem and how it's just going to guide them where they're going to go. I think if the other cars don't have that, they're going to need that as you convince first time adopters that they're going to be okay and they're going to get to their destination in their chargeable EV.
It's for them to screw it up. I have to agree. Now I'm thinking like, why didn't I even look at that when I was test driving the Kia Niro EV? So I'm gonna check on that, because you're right. This is extremely important, because you don't want to now checking up Google or whatever for this car's charging locations. But one thing I do want to say, that the Electrify America app that's launching at the end of this month, that they've just announced, actually going to have some interesting features that even Tesla Supercharging Network doesn't have, which means that they can actually estimate when the cars that are already taking up the stalls at that location will be done charging, so you can estimate whether or not the wait time, if the entire location is full, is worth it, or you can go to the next one that maybe will make you wait a little bit less. I like that feature, and I hope Tesla will implement it as well.
It probably will. And in fact, Teslas will probably be even more advanced. They'll probably even predict how many vehicles will be there at the time you arrive, because Tesla is going to know how many vehicles in their total fleet are headed to any given supercharger. You know what I mean? So like they can get
Yeah,
even more predictive with
that
how
you're
they
right.
balance that. And I think that's going to become necessary as there become more and more Teslas on the road.
All right, awesome, man. Listen, I think that it's great that we're even having this conversation, because we couldn't have this conversation even a few months ago. I mean, all these cars just kind of came on sale in the last few months, including the Leaf's 225-mile version. So I'm just so happy that we can have this conversation. I almost don't care what people buy, because as long as they buy electric, and we just help them a little bit, to pick one for their needs, I think everybody wins. This is what I'm here for. I want everybody to drive an electric car first, and then brand related, it's to me, I almost don't care. I'll make my own personal choices, but I think it's just awesome that this is even a thing now, that we can talk about it.
Agreed, Alex.
All right, man. Well, listen, now, once again, a reminder for everybody, if you want us to watch us dance, which I think we got some moves. Go to Eli's Instagram at my Tesla Adventure. I will post it in mine as well at E4 Electric. I think you should follow both of us, because, I think we're fun. I think we're fun. So, all right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on again. We probably have a topic for the next week already, but I think we're gonna wait and reveal that next week. Have a great the rest of your week, man, and I will see you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, guys. So that's pretty much it. I love having these conversations, and just the fact that we are able to have it. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Do you think that Model 3 is the best car at the $35,000 for you? And do you think it would be for, let's say, your best friend, right? Like, that probably a good, interesting test for everybody to, like, what would you recommend? It's your best friend, so you want them to get the best car for them. And even if you like Tesla, that might not be the same. I'm actually curious to know what you guys think. Don't forget to get on our VIP list too, by the way. Exclusive stories that you don't see on this channel, and deals now. Go ahead and sign up. That's free at e4electric.com/VIP. All right. That's it for another exciting installment, if you ask me, of Supercharged with Eli Burton. All of the links are in the description of this video. I'll see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.